And we're live.
Hey folks, Scott and I are back this week with another great topic. I'm really excited about this one. I don't know what, well, I'm excited. So this week we're talking about how to change puppies' unwanted behavior. I think I'm so excited, Scott, because um, I get a lot of inquiries about puppies and the puppy behaviors and stuff like that. But there's a
Yeah.
way to kind of go about preventing them and kind of, manage them. So I just wanted to talk to folks about how to, go about that because there's things you want to look out for before you even start training that
Okay.
you may be doing that causes your puppy's unwanted behaviors. So I want to talk about that. But as far as Archie, like before I jump into stuff, I just kind of want to know when he was a puppy, when he was younger, how did you go about like when he did stuff you didn't want him to do, kind of fixing it?
We did a lot of asking. We did a lot of YouTubing,
Pleading, begging.
playing, a lot of crying.
Yeah.
We- his breed is a Sheepadoodle. They're known for their nipping at heels. So he's a
Yep.
herding dog. So he was nipping. I had sweaters with holes because their baby teeth are very sharp. I call them shark
Hmm.
teeth. So yeah, that's we tried to take recommendations, advice because here we can only basically, I guess, at the 16-week mark, that's when we can start training in person. And
Yep.
so we're just looking for anything to hold us over until we hit that 16-week mark and that sort of thing. So a lot of times it was like, if he's biting more than like they're nipping, then we'd give him a stuffy and that sort of thing, and
Hmm.
just trying to
Hmm.
redirect his energy as much as possible. Um, so
Yeah.
it's a challenge.
Yeah, trial and error. If you're not, if you're not a trainer working with a trainer, there's a lot of trial and
Yeah,
error.
you
And
don't know what you're
so
doing. It's hard. Yeah.
exactly, it can be hard. And so I wanted to go through kind of the steps and the thought process you want to go through if your dog is having some of those unwanted behaviors like the nipping, the jumping, the biting, all that type of stuff that comes along with the puppy's behaviors. So to start off, I want to talk to you guys about first determining the cause of the dog's behavior. So before you think about, okay, let's call in a trainer, let's, whatever you're thinking about, first there's some steps you want to take. So first you want to determine the cause of your dog's behavior. So a lot of times your dogs do things for attention, so it's not truly bad behavior. So say you're working all day and then they're bored and they want your attention, so they'll start pawing at you and things like that, and then they turn it into a fun game. So oftentimes and then what do? You usually like, oh no, get down, or
Right.
you start giving them attention, and so they start doing that bad behavior because you created it. So you first want to think to yourself, like, have I created this bad behavior? And what is the bad behavior? Start taking note of them. Um, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. So you just want to broadly think about the behavioral issue and your dog and the reason why your dog's acting the way they're acting. Another thing you want to do, like I said, is looking at your behavior and how you're speaking to your dog. Is that causing their unwanted or bad behavior? So I talk about this a lot, especially with potty training. You catch your dog having an accident, or in the midst of it, you yell no, or whatever you're saying to your dog, and then that's to them, that's something negative, even though you're truly not being mean to them. And that way they learn to run off and they do bad stuff, quote unquote. So inadvertently, you can cause them to have that bad behavior by the way you speak to them and stuff like that. And also, even if you're not yelling at them, I talk about this a lot too, attention barking. So say that you're working from home and they're barking, barking, barking at you. You turn and look, and all of a sudden they're like, "Ooh, that works," and dogs do it works, and now all of a sudden you have that bad behavior. So a lot of this you have to look at yourself first. You have to look at yourself first too, and your dog as well. So you have to look at the whole picture. I always talk about that. Um, Also, you want to look at the environment around you. Look at your home. Look where your dog is. Is there something irresistible in the environment? So if I love, chocolate cheesecake and there's one sitting on the counter all day, of course I'm going to act up because I want it. So you want to look at your environment and see, like, are there things that are irresistible to your dog that they just won't leave alone? And you just want to put those things away, or use a crane or a barrier, to block them off if it's like a whole area, and do things like that. So with Archie, did you do any of these things in the beginning?
Yeah,
Like
so
first trying to,
like our condo's open concept, so like the living room is just
yep,
open to the kitchen, but we bought like this long baby gate that's sectioned off the living room or the family, whatever you want to call it, from the kitchen,
yep,
and then that kitchen was basically blocked off we had the door to our bedrooms right there, so that kitchen was his space. And we kept him
Exactly.
in there, and his crate was in that space, even though he didn't always stay in it. That was another story. But yeah, we tried to keep him contained. We try to keep him in
Mhm.
one space, right? And then we can work with him. We know if he has to go out, we know he's there, type of
Exactly.
thing. And then we can play with him, and then it's a very quick move, type of thing. And I think it was I want to say a month or two before he outgrew. Like we started to bring him into the living room and sort of through the
Slowly.
because
Yep.
the gate had the door, right, like a baby gate and that sort of thing.
Yep.
And so eventually he got through, and we let him go and everything. Funny quick story about that is that once he could climb up onto the couch, the arm of the couch is right by the gate, and
The
so one
gate.
day
Yep.
he just stood and pressed on the top of the gate and pushed it right
Open the
over.
door.
He like pushed the whole gate right over. He pushed the whole gate, so we're like the
He's
whole
like, sit
fence.
down.
He's like, okay, no more fence. We're like, okay, no more fence. So
Yeah,
maybe
exactly.
that's the best thing. But we gave it enough time where he had it grown at that point too.
Exactly. It's kind of like when a baby crawls out the crib, you're like, oh, that's the end of the crib there.
So.
Yep. And so just like Scott saying, you can use crates and gates and stuff like that. And you have to assume if you're not managing your puppy, they're getting in trouble. And also if you look at your dog's environment and take away those irresistible triggers, you'll notice that your dog will behave a little bit better just by removing some of those. Another thing that you might want to think about that, may not pop in your head right away is considering your dog's diet. So a lot of times when you get a new puppy, you may want to change the food that the breeder has given you, or maybe they have some type of intolerance that you don't know about to food. So you always want to, or maybe the preservatives or whatever it may be, you always want to check food to be sure that you want to check your dog's food to make sure that's not the cause of an unwanted behavior. And, one thing, just to give you an inside peek of how dog trainers think, one thing that we do go through ourselves when you guys call us for your dog's behavior, you always want to rule out any type of medical condition. So before you even talk about getting into change of behaviors, make sure that your dog is not sick or things like that. So if you think that it may be caused that they're like aggressive or say they have incontinence and you're working on house training, just, rule out any type of medical behaviors first. So that's just a little dog trainer insight. So now that you know about how, to go about before you get into training those, fixing the unwanted behaviors, let's talk about how to fix those. So just like Scott was talking about, before you can get into any type of training, whether you're going to do it yourself or whether you're going to call in a trainer, you want to work on managing whatever behaviors that you're working through. So for instance, if your dog is stealing items, you want to make sure you put items away. If your dog is having potty accidents in a home or peeing in a home, make sure you put them in a crated or gated area if you can't watch them. The same thing if they're jumping on guests, you want to make sure you put them on a leash when guests come in and manage them not jumping or put them inside a gate. So you ideally want to think of all the different ways that you can manage the situation before until you can get some training. So like I said, using crates, gates, blocking off access, and also for the dogs who bark out the window, closing the blinds and stuff like that. So these are all things that is going to help decrease your dog's behavior until you can get some type of training. So moving right into training, just like I was talking about, like how you speak to your dog, you want to use all sorts of positive reinforcement. So what that means is that when your dog's doing a behavior that's unwanted, you want to teach them what to do. So for instance, if they're nipping on you, you want to say ouch and you redirect them with a toy. Also, if they keep on pulling on a leash, you want to stop and wait till they don't pull, and then you can go. But also, you want to give them a treat when they do this as well, because we use treats because most dogs do love toys, not toys, love food. And so that's like a positive reinforcement that they're doing something good. So anytime you have your dog do a positive behavior, you want to reward them with food or whatever like gets them, excited. Not all dogs love food. So you can give them praise or some of such or whatever works for you. Also, just like I said, teaching your dog what you want them to do instead of what they want. So again, going back to jumping, if your dog's jumping and you want them to calmly meet four people on all four paws, you can teach them to sit. So you want to train your dog that. If they're begging for food while you eat, you can teach them to go settle on a mat. So that's a good one. Instead of barking out the window and worrying about something, you can have your dog, of course, you want them to look out the window, but you also want to teach them a solid recall so they can come away from the window whenever you want. And the same thing if you want to train your dog to go out in the woods, but they're like sniffing around, they may run off. You also want to do it just like a solid recall. So all these things you want to think, whatever the behaviors your dog, whatever behavior your dog is doing that's unwanted, what would you like them to do? And then you want to work on training them to do that. Also, you can do positive, we call them positive interrupters. So instead of yelling at your dog like, no, don't do that, you can do an interruption. You can do kiss. Look, oh, now no, you guys stay there. My dogs are like coming. So you can do like kissy noises. So those are positive interrupters, things that are not gonna like be negative towards your dog or make them feel some type of way. They're just really positive things. Also, another thing you can do is teach your dog to look or to focus on you. And that's kind of like with any unwanted behavior, whether they're stealing items, they're jumping. If you teach them to look or to watch me command, you can tell them, hey, like, look at me or watch me, and they'll focus on you. You can give them a treat instead of them doing that unwanted behavior. That's always like a really cool one. Does Archie know that one? To look at me or watch me?
I don't think look at me. No, he knows like on for like his onto his bed if we need to place him somewhere.
Yep.
We'll use leave it if we need him to leave something alone. He's pretty good with leave it. And then yes I would say yes is probably the replacement for watch me. Yes will bring
Yep.
his attention back to us, and he expects like a treat, but that
Mhm.
we're happy with that because if he's going after something or if he's interested, he's trying to react to a dog, or if he's just like somewhere where he shouldn't be, yes will get him
Mhm.
back, whip his head around because he knows he's going to get something. And then
Yep.
yes seems to do well for to replace that, but watch me is a really great one. Yeah.
Exactly. And to piggyback off what Scott is saying, because I just remembered now, like sometimes I'll train dogs and when they're walking, they're doing a good job. I'm like, good job, good
Yeah.
job.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden that's their cue to look at me. So just because I'm saying, train them, look or watch me, think about what your dog responds to you with now consistently. Because there's always like one key phrase that you say to your dog all the time and they look at you and you use that as instead to get them to focus on you. So that's always like a really cool one. Also, one thing you want to do is I always talk about how, when I do the consultations, how I hear like, oh, dogs don't listen. There's a reason behind that. And so any behavior that you're going to train them to kind of not do that unwanted behavior, just start to practice around distractions so they can do it no matter what's going on around them. And so that's like a really important one to make sure that, they can perform it no matter what's going on, especially if it's a behavior that I'm getting this backward. So you want to just make sure whatever you train them, they can perform it everywhere, if that makes sense. And then last but not least, a really important thing, you don't ever want to punish your dog for any unwanted behavior. So whether it's yelling at them, using a verbal corrections, physical corrections, it's not actually teaching them what you want them to do. And all it's going to do is make for a fearful dog, an aggressive dog along the line. So you want to try to avoid that. And if you feel that you're getting frustrated and stuff like that, you can always work with a trainer like myself to devise a customized plan to kind of help you along. And so just as a quick reminder, if you want to use some management tools and so you can get some training, all management does is help decrease some of that behavior until training can take place. And then also you can use some interrupters, make sure that you're not, yelling, remember, clapping, some kissy noises, and then you can move on to training your dog to not do those unwanted behaviors and having them do what you want them to do, such as sitting for greetings and stuff like that. But that's essentially how to go about getting started to kind of tackle these things with your puppies. And I hope that you learned some things for Archie, Scott.
I think so. Yes, some new things. Even though he's not a
Some new
puppy, he learned
things.
some new things. But it's always helpful to have these tips because, especially when you're new, as whether like Archie was our first dog, is like you can find these really helpful tips and you can have a better feel for what to do. You sort of get it
Exactly.
put on the path, and rather than just like hoping that you pick the right YouTube video, you have a good path
I
to a
know.
trainer and that sort of thing, right? And that's what we try to do with these lives is just like give a ton of value and just hopefully help people out along their journey with their dog and their puppy especially too. So
Yeah.
before we go, let's get a Francesca check. How's Francesca doing?
Oh my gosh. If you guys have been watching the lives, Francesca is doing awesome. She's like potty trained pretty much.
Nice.
She does sit stays. She's doing recalls. I'm training her off leash early, even though I don't plan on having her off leash. But
Yeah.
this morning I was training Leave It. I'll post a video for you guys. If you guys want to see it, let me know in the comments and I'll post it. But I was training her Leave It and she got it fairly quickly. And it's so
Nice.
cute to see when it's so dramatic how like they jump back with Leave It. But I'm gonna post that if you guys want to see that. But she's doing phenomenal.
Very good to hear.
You see how
Very good
excited
to
I got?
hear.
I'm like, oh my god, oh my god.
Yeah.
I'm still a puppy owner, guys. I'm a dog
Yeah,
trainer, but I'm a dog mom. I get emotional.
exactly, right. It's
Yeah.
the baby, right?
Yeah.
So yeah.
Mhm. Mhm.
Awesome. But yeah,
Yeah.
that's awesome to hear. Again, like drop comments, and you're putting a
Yep.
lot of that stuff on the Facebook page and also Instagram even more so.
Exactly.
So if you want to follow along the journey, check out the down for Paws on Instagram as well. We're there as well, so check that out. Anything you want to finish up with, Pam?
No, I think you got it.
Okay,
No.
we're good to go. Yeah, then check us out next week. We're gonna have
Mhm.
a we're more than likely gonna have a very special guest next week, so check us out next week. Stay
Exactly.
tuned, and otherwise, hope everyone has a great week, and we will see you then.
All right.